Okay, cool. So welcome to the third community event this year that we've ran. So I'm James. I'm the head of design over at Freetrade, and I'm going to talk a little bit tonight about, hopefully, a little bit about design at Freetrade, a little bit how we kind of redesigned investing, and also we're going to give you a little preview of what we've been working on our Android app. So I'm going to start by sort of talking a little bit about what exactly is design at Freetrade. It's a little bit of problem solving. It's a little bit of colouring in, and hopefully it's a little bit of magic. But to draw it back a little bit for a second, is like, what exactly is design? It's fundamentally like form and function. This is a classic example of form. So this is the Alessi Juicy. I'm not sure if anyone's familiar, but it was kind of famously made to be very striking, very aesthetically pleasing, but absolutely crap at squeezing lemons. And its creator, Philip Stark, actually said, "My juicer isn't meant to squeeze lemons, it's actually meant to start conversations." So that's like a classic example of kind of function following form. What does that mean at Freetrade? Okay, so form and function is essentially UI and UX. And this is a great example. I had a child 2 years ago. I had absolutely no idea what baby on board signs to buy, so I bought like several. But classically, this is very UX focused, very functional. But I thought this was kind of cute, so I bought that too. And at Freetrade, we have kind of multiple disciplines within design, and that's UX design, so as I say, function, UI, visuals, so icons, content, excuse me, typography and color, interaction, graphic, illustration. We kind of bundle all these up into a kind of broader tag of product design. There's some kind of meatier disciplines within there, like more of the graphic and illustration, but we do those too. So we're a small team, so we do a lot of things. And what exactly is our kind of process? What are we actually doing like day to day, week on week, to try and build Freetrade? A lot of design thinking, and it's kind of a very non-linear process, even though it looks quite linear here. So we try and empathize with our users. We try to really go out and understand what problems they're having, have a very human-centered approach to design. And that helps us try and define the problems themselves, like a literal definition of what's the core problem, and try and seek to define it in a user-centric way. So that's not saying something like we have to up top ups by 10%, but actually our users are having a real problem, a real friction with topping up. How can we improve that? That's user-centric. And the fun part for us as designers, we get to use our colouring in skills. We get to sketch a lot of ideas, brainstorm with the rest of the team, like map out ideas, and it's very much the kind of broad ideation phase for us. And alongside that, it's not easy to really know what's going to work until you prototype something, until you really get to feel it, touch it, till it's tangible. And that helps actually loop this cycle to ideate. It sparks new ideas, you try new things. And equally, testing those prototypes, testing those ideas with real users, whether that's in a kind of one-on-one user research session, whether that's kind of releasing something into a smaller cohort and we kind of see what people actually feel it in the wild, or whether it's we kind of send something out more broadly, like we have in the past, sent some designs out for people to test and get some feedback on that. And as I said, this isn't linear. This kind of then can create new ideas. Like we think, okay, actually, this is cool, but maybe we could have done it like this. And that also can help sometimes redefine the problem itself that we're trying to actually solve. And also, because you're testing things, it helps us to empathize with our users even further. So this kind of is an example of where we might get to on an ideation phase. So this is a really good chance for us to really go very broad, ask a lot of questions. We might have encountered some restrictions at this point. There might be things that we want to kind of deeper explore. And actually, like, once you understand those constraints and have sketched the ideas, it's really great to kind of move into a critique session with other designers, with other stakeholders in the business, with engineers, and actually sometimes it might be like the first time that they've actually seen this. So you having that context where you've empathized, you've iterated, you've defined the problems, you get to actually show that to the rest of the team and get some feedback on that. And it's really insightful. And actually, for anyone that kind of sees something and thinks that we just design one thing and then ship it, we definitely do not. This is a recent design that we did, and there was a bunch of iterations. These are at quite a high fidelity level, but this was kind of like done on the fly with a paired session, and actually like we just went really broad on this to get to something. And actually we do this as well so that we can kind of use our Lego blocks, if you will, our component library, and that allows us to kind of work cross-functionally very well. So we work between teams, keeping a consistency so that what you actually see and interact with is much better quality, and it allows us to execute much quicker. Excuse me. Quicker is good too. But then you might actually get to something more like what you would see in the app, where we actually get to a build phase and actually send something out, whether that's to a smaller cohort, like I said before, and we test and then actually iterate on something, which is what we did here, and then we release it more publicly. So now I've kind of talked a bit about process, very briefly as it is though, but what exactly do I mean when I say redesigning investing? And how exactly do we apply what I've just talked about to designing a modern day investment platform? So what have I told you what that means? When we say redesigning investing, it's at its core, it's basically what do we want to do differently? What are the things that we're trying to change? We're trying to make investing more accessible, more affordable, and more user-focused. So I'm going to jump in and show some of the things that we're trying to kind of optimize for. First one, from a business perspective, first and foremost, is low fees. So zero fee investing being something that obviously we offer. This is the minimum commission fees per trade. This is huge, and it's obviously the core of our very proposition, which we've designed the whole product around. To jump into some competitors, I'm not going to name any names during this, but these are the kind of things that we're up against, and people have this expectation of using these, and actually we want to target people that have much more of a consumer background. So seeing something like this would be overwhelming. There's so much information, it's hard to understand. We've done market research where you show somebody a candlestick graph. There's absolutely zero key here as to how to read that as a first-time investor. There's also an abundance of dark patterns, and when we say dark patterns in design, it's something like a sell button that looks destructive, it looks negative. So it shouldn't be a negative action to try and sell a position. It's not a bad thing, but it's kind of tantamount to saying log out. Are you sure you want to log out? Yes. Are you sure? Are you really sure though? Yes, I'm sure. That's more of a dark pattern. And then the other side here is like having to fill in an abundance of information to actually place an order. There's like actually quite a bit of kind of hoops, I guess, to jump through, a lot of effort to be able to place an order. Again, a lot of information overload here. There's very difficult things to parse. So we have kind of currencies alongside ETFs, alongside securities. There are no currency symbols. And again, further kind of these dark patterns that we spoke of before. It's actually a lot for people on a first-time basis to try and take in and make sense of. And then finally, one of probably my biggest bugbears that I tried to change when I joined Freetrade is things like a ticker symbol rather than a company name. So we have two examples here. So RMV is Rightmove, RR is Rolls-Royce. Would you have a clue what that was if you didn't know? It's like you only know what you know, right? So there's nothing that tells me that. And equally, the price here, so UK securities, this is probably one of the first conversations I have with anyone that's new to this, is priced in pence. So this is actually £73, not £7,000. And it's such an oversight, I feel. It's very antiquated. It's a 50-year-old system that nobody's thought to challenge. So what did we do? And equally, like no labels on the y-axis. It's very difficult to kind of take this information in. Another one, and this is probably a dark pattern, if anyone came to the last event, I definitely stole this slide, I'm sorry, but I felt like it was worth talking about it from a more of a UI perspective as well, an experience, because these are two separate experiences, but they look exactly the same. So one is a security that you buy, you own, and the other is a CFD, which is a contract for difference. And the best way to describe that is you're essentially betting on the position, you're betting on the stock movement, you don't actually own it. But they look identical, so you would think that you're actually getting ownership. This is actually illegal in the US, but companies are doing it here, which is shocking really. So just to rewind, things that we're kind of optimizing for. So high fees, hard to understand and an abundance of information, an overwhelm of information, and dark patterns, poor patterns. So an example to kind of call out something that you might be more familiar with, a more consumer-focused product. So anyone know Deliveroo? No? No? Small people? Couple of people? Yep. Small company, like nothing big really. So imagine you fired up the product and you saw like WGMA, like OnB, and I don't know, like GBK, but that kind of works, so maybe not that one. But so like Wagamama, Honest Burger, and then you drill down into that, and potentially here, 2 different countries, 2 different actual currencies displayed differently with no currency symbol, but actually it's the same price. So you've got €4.50, £4.50, but priced in pence. But you wouldn't know that because it doesn't tell you that. And then the other side, so going back to what I was talking about a second ago, where you have 2 identical UIs, imagine one of these, you ordered your food, came to you, you ate it, you were really happy, it was great. The other one, you ordered it, you weren't sure if it was going to turn up. You were betting on whether it's going to turn up or not. It doesn't turn up because you probably ordered it from Uber Eats. And so these are the kind of things I'm talking about. So this is what we tried to challenge originally when we first launched Freetrade. How did we actually go about that? So pricing with clear pricing so that anybody can understand it. Experienced investors, new investors alike. Did everyone like it? Not necessarily, but I think it's the right thing to do. It's very clear what the price here is. Showing a clear company name and a brand that you can recognize, that you can be aware of. People understand these things. They want to actually buy into products that they know, and that's how you do kind of start investing. You invest in things that you understand, that you have knowledge of. And it's 2019, it's a mobile app. Why wouldn't you have a company logo and a name? It's crazy. And then kind of like what I was talking about before around an overload or like an abundance of information that you have to go through to place an order. I mean, could you imagine going through any consumer app and like literally having to fill in box after box after box? But most things now, you like hit one button and it's like you're signed in and you bought with that same button, Apple Pay. And so here we were trying to really change that, where you would literally enter one field, so you enter an amount of money that you want to spend, and we tell you how many shares you can buy for that. This will actually be even better when we can launch fractional shares, because you would be able to buy anything, Amazon, Google, etc., and still you put in an amount that you want to spend and you get a fraction of that. Right now it's whole shares, but I still think that's a very good experience. And clear as well. This is what I'm talking about. It's very clear. So one other thing that probably a lot of you are familiar with, I hope a lot of here are community members. We try and be very, very community focused, and I think Vlad actually left his comment is here somewhere. I'm not going to make him stand up or anything, but he's at the back there. So we try and actually interact with our community, keep the conversations going with them, and this is from a little while ago, but we kind of shared ideas and wireframes, and then finally like more high fidelity designs to get to a point where we felt like it made sense, and that the people we were designing for actually thought it made sense as well. So we're all about kind of transparency and consumer focus, and there's nothing clearer for me that validates that than something like this. This is one of the comments that got left like quite early when we launched, but it was just a fantastic validation. And the kind of real quote to pull out here is accessible to everyone, expert or not. And if I could like put something on a stamp with Freetrade on it, that would literally be it, because that's our mission. That's what we're trying to do. So, I don't know, is everyone get a read of that? Good time? Sweet. So I thought I'd give you guys a little preview of our Android app, and we're going to have a little demo shortly as well. So I actually first kind of talked about this a little bit at our launch party back in, I think November, December now. It was a little while ago. But when I shared it then, I think these were kind of explorations, more of a vision for Android that I'd kind of drummed up a little while ago. So anyone that saw that then, I'll just kind of show it again now. This is what we shared. So the idea here was to be consistent with Android's material design, have pink headers, use Roboto, very clearly an Android design, but it's a little bit old in respect to what Google are doing now, and it felt, if you've seen any changes within Android, a little bit more Material 1, if you will, versus Material 2. And that is to say, they had a massive gear shift in their ecosystem, and what we didn't want was to have this kind of clunky and outdated experience versus what Google have been doing in their apps, where you can kind of see quite clearly the difference between the two. there's so much white space, a lot cleaner, more modern UI, centered titles. They brought in their new Google Product Sans font, and that's kind of filtered throughout their entire ecosystem now. And what I didn't want was for us to launch a product that then on day one, with a brand new app out, felt outdated, felt kind of clunky and old, like I said. So we kind of went about redesigning the experience, tried to make it feel, one, like very, very native. We wanted it to be a clear experience that you were using on Android and for Android, but it also like aligns nicely with iOS for us as well. So things are actually a lot easier for us to design like this because we can have closer libraries, like I talked about the Legos earlier. Good old Lego. And so it automatically feels like much sharper, much cleaner. And like there was some conversation when we did this about whether it was the right thing, but I hope everybody agrees that it just looks 100 times better. And like I say, because it's closer to the two platforms, it means we can execute a lot quicker, which is great. So I'm going to introduce Ian Fuller. So he's our VP of Eng. Give him a little woo! You've got to have this. So we're going to do a really, really smooth transition.
All right, I'll just hold that.
There you go.
All right. That. No one can hear me. I'll speak out there. This is quite a quick one, but the start of the year, coming back from a belly full of turkey, we set out with some pretty ambitious goals, and that was to build the Android app within the quarter. Many of the team said this is a bad idea, we can't actually do it, and they were quite right, because at the time we had just Greg. Greg, do you want to stand up and give a little wave? And he was right, we needed more engineers. One person was not going to build the Android app. So then we roped in the iOS engineer, which is Sophie, who's going to talk to you in a minute. And then we got very lucky. We managed to, it went from kind of impossible. Huh? Oh, click, thanks. There. So it went from this just can't be done to it's very unlikely to be done. And then finally, it was like weeks in, we managed to hire Adam as well, and it went from it's going to be very difficult to be done. But the guys did it. They've been working pretty much non-stop this whole quarter. I know from the outside it looks a bit like nothing's happening, but they've been working incredibly, incredibly hard. And yeah, I'm very pleased to say, and she'll be very proud that like as of yesterday, we started to put it in the hands of real users. And to give you a little demo of what that looks like, I'm going to invite Sophie up here. So. Right, there it is.
Cool, hi everyone. So I'm Sophie, thanks for the intro, Ian. I'm actually an iOS developer, but at the beginning of the year I was put on the Android project, so but honestly it's been really great. So I've been working with Greg, who's our lead Android developer, and we worked together at Starling previously building a banking app. So it's been really great to work with him. He started off the Android project and laid out the architecture. So we went with Kotlin, which is the modern variant of Java, and he laid out the pattern that we're basically going to use for our architecture. So we went with MVVM, and the reason why we chose that is because it allows us to maintain consistency with iOS as well. So one of the things we really value in Freetrade's engineering kind of culture is the ability for engineers to be fairly tech agnostic and work across different stacks. By having a consistent stack, that means we can kind of work across them, which has been helpful. So then Adam joined us in the middle of February, and it's been really great having Adam on the team. He is a Kotlin expert, so whereas before I was writing Kotlin code that was basically converted Java, you know, Adam taught us how to, you know, use it in a really stylistic, idiomatic way, so he really upped our game. So yeah, I'm really kind of proud that we've managed to do this. As Ian said, it was always a lofty goal to be able to do a whole app in 3 months, but we've managed to do it, and I'm going to be sharing some of that with you. Cool, so let's dive into the application. So as is quite common in some fairly modern Android apps these days, you have a favorable for the tab bar navigation at the bottom rather than the navigation drawer. So it launches you directly into the portfolio view. So if you're familiar with this from iOS, you get your graph at the top, which shows you how your portfolio is doing over time. And we're aware that we can surface more information here and help you kind of really benchmark what your portfolio is doing. So that's a space to watch over the coming months. But you get that graph and you also get the investments that you've made. So on this screen, you'll see your 6 largest investments. And you'll also be able to see them all if you tap that. Cool, so moving on, you'll see the Discover screen. So at the moment, this is a screen that's basically a list of all the stocks and ETFs that we have in the application. You're able to search, A to Z here. The idea is the screen is going to evolve and able to surface the content a lot easier for what you're interested in, what might be hot at the moment. But right now, it's just an easy way to be able to purchase something that you want. So, for example, we can go into Activision Blizzard, and it shows you the information for this stock. So you can see a price graph, which allows you to select different time periods, and you're able to see all the other information, such as the trading stats for that day, where the pricing data is coming from, and various other things like that. One of the things that I really enjoyed about this screen, I worked on the collapsing toolbar up at the top, is, as James was mentioning, it's really respectful of the Android native patterns. So it is a collapsing toolbar. You're familiar with the fact that the title just collapses as you scroll it upwards, but we've injected our own personality into it. So if you watch the icon, that's moving and scaling, and also the subtitle, which gives you the ticker and a little bit about the company, just fades away. And I think this is really great UI because it's respectful, but it shows that we're Freetrade and we're injecting our personality here. So from the screen, you can also go into the order flow as you are used to. So you're able to purchase an amount that you'd like and change what kind of order you want. And then moving on, you'll be able to see kind of the results of those orders and executions here in your activity feed. So this screen will surface your monthly statements, your top-ups, your withdrawals, the contract notes, and even if you have trades that you cancelled, for example. So one of the things that's really nice about this screen is this. As an iOS developer, I'm very familiar with this kind of design. It's called skeuomorphic design. So the idea is it evokes a physical picture of an object. So in this case, this is a contract note. It used to be a piece of paper that a broker would sign and stamp. This is our digital version of it. So yeah, that's the activity tab, and then you can also go into the account where you can see various information about your account, your linked bank account, top up and withdraw. And the interesting thing to note here is when we release the Android app, it will support your ISAs. So if you've already opened them on iOS, then you'll be able to use the app. But the thing to note is you won't be able to immediately open up an ISA from Android. So that will follow very quickly, but it won't be at launch. So just a heads up there. So yeah, that's kind of an overview of the Android application. We'll be giving you an ability to participate in testing. So yesterday we opened it up to the community, and it was really great to see the response that we had. It was open for like 10 minutes, about 200 people plus wanted to sign up to that. It's really great to see such support from you guys, so thanks a lot for that, and we'll be sharing some details of how you can get involved in that. There was a question from the back.
Yeah, like outside of the app, and the vertical
Sorry, I didn't get that question.
Like, can I also use it on my laptop or like my PC?
The Freetrade app.
Yeah, just like the PC. Like,
Yeah, do you want to repeat the question?
So users asking if you can use this app on your PC or computer. At the moment, this is on Android devices. So I'm mirroring at the moment, which is why you see it on a desktop. It's just emulated, basically. It's coming from here. But yeah. Cool, excellent.
Does anyone have a question they want to ask?
I have a question.
Sure.
Why did you decide to build an Android app which looks lots of iOS patterns and not use like cross-functional kind of things like React Native or Xamarin or Cordova?
Yeah, so probably one for both of us.
Yeah, I mean, experience, like first and foremost. I think the idea was that there are certain patterns that come with iOS that you expect, and also that SDK can develop over time. Similarly with Android. I think leveraging things like React Native or Flutter to provide consistent experience maybe in the graph or in some other parts of the app, let's say the profile page, are definitely going to be important. But also we believe that absolute top class experience on each device is key for us. It helps build trust, and we think it's important for a financial product. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, cool.
Concur.
Concur. Yeah.
Are you guys planning to develop a web app in the near future?
Near future. That's a good question. We've got a big list of things we really want to do. Over the next quarter, over the next 6 months. We understand that people want to do some things on the desktop. Maybe download statements, especially, is a big one. We also think, though, that follow me around the room. We also believe that the type of customers that we want to reach long term are going to be people who want to just get their phone out and place a trade. But yeah, we will have something on the web, definitely. Probably it's equally important to have APIs as well. So I'm sure some of you guys use things like Emma. We want to be able to provide that integration.
What kind of integrations will you facilitate?
What kind of integrations will we facilitate? As in, who might we integrate with? Yeah, definitely aggregators. So that's the most obvious one. So we can show our content and you can see your position. We may have some more kind of proprietary integrations with other partners, and that we'll see over time.
Just wondering, like,
yeah.
Users are sort of looking for more advanced features over time. Like they like the app and so on, but maybe they do want those more advanced features that you mentioned that you were sort of straying away from. I'm just wondering, are you planning to cater for them, or are you very set in your approach that you outlined today?
No, I think that's a great question. And just to repeat that question, it was, do we foresee ourselves kind of bringing in more in-depth features for people that are maybe like a bit more experienced in the future? I would say we obviously first and foremost want to cater to the kind of new investor, but that's not to say that we want people that are currently investing with maybe some of the companies we've mentioned, some of the bigger current incumbents, not to use our platform as well. We want that. I would say like there's going to be big changes that you'll see over the next couple of months. We've kind of been probably still in MVP mode, I would say, almost, while we've added but very impactful things like US stocks and ISAs that don't change the shape of the product so much, but actually bring features that everybody wanted. They were the top of our requested list. So over the next few months, we're going to be working a hell of a lot on kind of the discovery experience, on insights, so bringing a lot more information into the app, and I think that's what kind of everybody, like new and kind of more experienced, wants. And also if you want to kind of follow on what we're doing, we actually have our roadmap is public. I think is that on our...
Yeah, there's definitely a blog out there. If you search Freetrade public roadmap, you'll be able to get to it.
It's on the community board as well. I think there's a lot of conversation happens there too.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Sure, just go.
In the future, are you going to keep prioritizing iOS apps, or is Android and iOS going to be like on par now?
Do you want that?
Yeah, 100%. We know that we were behind on Android. We had to, we made the choice to provide a native experience, and that meant that we had to lead with one of the platforms. We chose iOS at the start. It's pretty clear from the community that it's like a 50-50 split, so Android is critically important. We actually have, we just did our Q2 OKRs, and we actually have an OKR specifically to have Android at 100% parity with iOS. So that doesn't mean tomorrow we have all the features that are in iOS. Unless maybe Greg and Sophie don't want to do anything this weekend. But we're going to have it there as a goal, and that means that each time we push something out, maybe it goes on iOS first, maybe it goes on Android, but we'll catch up with the other platforms straight away afterwards.
Yeah, I completely off the but I just wonder how you choose the short descriptions for the stocks, like PT,
James, you can say that.
I have nothing to do with it, by the way. But so Toby and our content department actually do those. I would say there's some of them that are maybe a little bit more playful than others. But I got called out specifically for one on Twitter, which I think we originally had Just Eat was down as slow delivery or something. So but I do not have anything to do with them, I promise. Sorry, sure.
Can you make me more money?
No.
Is there anything that you could introduce with some kind of like auto sell integration where the percentage of the profits get to a certain point where
So like a stop loss order, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's an order. It's a different order type. So there's kind of like limit orders on the buying front where you want to kind of hit a certain price and then it will buy, versus actually like a stop loss that you want to sell at a certain point. It's not anything that we're looking at right now because I think, in my personal opinion, like we want to actually improve the experience up to that point. Really, at the moment, like we want to optimize for kind of better. I mean, we have like hundreds of stocks now, and it's very hard to kind of pass that list. So that's where we want to spend our kind of resource right now. But it's not to say that in the future we won't add kind of multiple order types. Yeah.
From a monetary investment, do you guys like also invest in cryptos?
I don't think anytime soon.
Ethereum or
Sorry, the question we get there was are we going to look at selling cryptos anytime soon?
selling cryptos like as a form of investment?
Oh, so you mean like a crypto ETF? I don't actually think there are any even offered at the minute in the universe that we trade in. I could be wrong. I think there are. In terms of actually like trading cryptos at all, I don't think that's anything that we're kind of looking at the minute. It doesn't really fit within our business model of wanting to be kind of more safe, secure, long-term investment. And plus, cryptos have gone off a cliff at the minute, so I don't know if that's really is that even a thing now? Still? Is anyone? Huh?
So when are you gonna take my money, man?
Sorry.
Take my money, man. This is good.
I'm personally nothing to do with this conversation, but I'm starting a crypto trading company. If you want to chat. Is there anyone else? Sorry.
You spoke about your engineers coming from iOS to Android, specific to you, but I just want to know, besides the design leadership, do any of your designers work on iOS and
Sure.
Android? Or
Yeah.
And do you find it efficient, and how do you see it sort of going in the future?
I feel like there's so much back and forth there. I'll comment quickly on the design side. We don't directly edit on the app. Obviously, we leave that to the kind of more professionals. We do have kind of one member of the team who's trying to integrate our design system a little bit more closely with the code. So he's been looking at like design tokens, so where you can have kind of tokenized elements, say like a button color versus our brand color, and you could then, if we changed and decide to be like Freetrade yellow tomorrow, we could update that in one place and it filtered onto the app. So that's something that we're kind of ongoing, but I wouldn't kind of classify any of us as like design engineers or anything like that.
Yeah, what I mean is specifically is, do you have designers working on iOS only and Android?
Oh, sorry, I apologise. No, we don't. We work.
What was the question?
Sorry. So the question was, do we have any designers working specifically on iOS, specifically on Android? Two parts to that question. So to the answer, sorry. One, we have had during this initial phase where we wanted to get Android kind of as a project design. So Sharon, who's down here, by the way, there we go, and myself have worked on it. But as we go forward, and we've already kind of started this with some of the projects we've been working on, we wanted to work cross-functionally. So each kind of vertical has designers, and they work on iOS and Android and future products out there as well. So
I think it was like, what's the challenge of doing that as well?
was that part of the question too?
Yeah, I guess. Sorry, I didn't wrong.
No, it's cool. So, and the challenge is.
Is it more or less efficient to have designers working on both platforms, or specifically?
I think it's efficient because I've worked in both ways, and to be honest, when you kind of chop up products, you end up with inconsistencies because you kind of have like inevitably people will kind of be like, oh, you know, I love a mobile, I love a bottom sheet, I love a dancing fairy, and you know, you'll end up with things way more different than you expect on both platforms. But equally, like they'll happen at like different times, and I feel like that's less efficient than having one person be really clear on the experience that they want to design for. Like you kind of start more agnostic. You don't need to start with a platform in mind. You just start with the experience, and then when you actually move into kind of UI and production, you start thinking a bit more about the kind of nuance of maybe like a bottom sheet on Android versus a kind of full screen mobile or two-thirds mobile on iOS. So, but our component library kind of makes up for a lot of that as well. So it makes it very efficient and quick to build. Sure, sorry, you say?
I know you mentioned Apple Pay earlier. I was wondering how far off do you think we are in terms of topping up by Google Pay?
So the easier one to answer is how close are we on iOS, because that's the one that we started on. So everything that you see in iOS over the next few weeks hasn't got a look in on Android yet. but that's like what we're going to do in the next quarter is like play catch up a little bit. But it's quite close, Apple Pay and iOS, and a lot of the work then's been done on the platform side to support it. So not too long on Android is the short answer. You'll see it this quarter for definite.
I think there's one just around the corner.
Yeah.
Just related to that, obviously, you know, I don't use the platform yet. So can you top up like debit card or Apple Pay? And if you allow that, it costs you a lot of merchant acquiring fees. I mean,
Yeah.
Given that,
Yeah.
given investment is quite a high ticket item,
Yeah.
why would you allow that? And you know, what's the strategy to actually disencourage people to top up by a card, because that's not what your users should do?
Yep, yeah, I can answer that. So the question was like, do we allow card top up, and aren't we going to run out of money because we're spending all the merchant fees on it? It's very true, we would run out of money if we did that. So one of the most difficult points in our sign-up flow right now, and most of you who signed up will have experienced this, is topping up. We do it by bank reference code. It means you have to, in some instances, go home, find your little token for the bank and start the process, which is quite painful. So the first thing we're doing to alleviate that is introducing debit card payments. It has a fee, it's very true, but we're going to limit the amount you can put in on a debit or credit card. I don't know the exact figure, but let's say it's £1,000. That'll limit the cost to us, but hopefully get people into the flow. Because when we see new customers, especially people who haven't invested before, we want to simplify that as much as possible, get them through and actually make an investment. Then long term, we'll look at other payment methods like direct debit. It's just more integration work that we've got to do, but it's definitely on the long-term roadmap, and then we can kind of recoup those costs, and hopefully people subscribe and stay with us for a long period of time. Did that answer the question?
No,
yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's a thing a lot of consumers don't understand.
Mm.
When they say,
Yeah.
I have Apple Pay, but it actually is not a sustainable business.
Yeah, most companies lose like 1 to 3% when somebody takes a payment from them. So yeah.
Good old Apple.
Anybody else? Yeah.
Out of interest, what's the thinking behind the Freetrade logo? Like, where was the inspiration for that?
Oh, this was a while ago. I'm sure there's a blog post for this. We kind of we rebranded about 15 months ago, something like that now. And the thinking was originally that the brand we had wasn't really a kind of suitable product to go to market with. Like if you think of your brand as a product as well, it wasn't scalable. It didn't work well on any color backgrounds. It wasn't distinguishable. So we went to Koto, which was the studio that we used to rebrand. And the idea, I don't think it is there. So there's a really small version which I'm going to talk to, but essentially the idea was that it was kind of like, it's an F. Some people see it straight away, some people don't. It's kind of like a rising graph as well. We had kind of like multiple variations of it. I thoroughly recommend you check the post out. It's a really good read. I wrote it. And, but it kind of like, we had a lot of variations, a lot of different kind of directions to go in. But we wanted something really recognizable that we could really like, you see that, and like, I personally feel that you don't even need the Freetrade word mark with it. It feels very distinguishable. And in like I say, 2019, in a mobile world, you need that. And that was kind of part of the pink for us as well. It's very distinguishable. It's an ownable colour for us. And certainly in the fintech and space, it stands out. So I hope that answers the question. Sure. Sorry.
I have a question about the fractional investments.
Yeah.
What, if any, are the constraints at the moment for implementing that?
I think this is the last question as well. Sorry, just to.
Are we getting kicked out? So, no, okay. The question was, I think, what are the implications for doing fractional shares? Or what kind of what's holding us up as well was probably part of the question. So to get to market, which we did in 2018 in September, really we have to sit on top of a lot of other providers. And the providers that we're sat on top of right now don't provide that functionality natively. There are some providers that do, and we're in the process of working with them. But it's a long process, and it involves bringing some of the technology that we currently outsource in-house. But if we can hire quickly enough, we're hiring by the way, then we should be able to get it something to our users by the end of the year. Yeah.
Cool. I think.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think we have to wrap up on that one. But some of the team are going to be around afterwards having a drink. So I think we've got a bit of time here still anyway. So feel free to come and chat to us.
We've got 1
1
hour.
Yeah.
Not 1 minute. I thought it was a bit short, isn't it?
Go.
Thanks everybody.
Cheers. Thank you very much.